I did not expect what happened when I posted my reel on my Facebook page and a video on this YouTube channel about my recent ride with the Harley owners group. The comments, they just lit me up like full on. And I didn't know that doing a video on Harley owners group was going to be like kicking a hornet's nest. Did I get a range of comments from people who were just mad and other people who were very supportive. So it does seem like it's a very controversial topic. Let's get into it. Now, the internet hates a middle ground, especially when it comes to Harley-Davidson. Now, according to the comments, Hog is either the greatest motorcycle group on earth or it's the cringiest costume party for people who can't actually ride. Now, neither one of those is true, but that's how it comes across when you read the comments. Okay, let's clear something up. I'm just a guy who came back to riding motorcycles after a 30-year break. And today, I want to break down some of those content themes, compare them to my own Hog experience, and see whether they're myth, reality, or whether there's even a little bit of truth in why some of these people are so angry about how other people ride their motorcycles. So if this is your first time here, my name is Rob and this is Throttle Reborn. And on this channel, I talk about my journey coming back to riding motorcycles after 30 years away from riding. Now, I bought a Harley-Davidson and I joined Hog to see what it was all about. And I made a video about it. And the response, well, let's just say it was overwhelming. Okay, so I can understand some of the skepticism, but my initial reaction to the comments was, what are these people talking about? What I was reading didn't match up to my own personal experience at all. Now, I can understand there's some stereotypes, especially when it comes to Harley-Davidson, but most of the comments, reading through them, I couldn't get my head around them. So here's the thing when it comes to internet comments about motorcycling, especially in the big cruiser market. You're either a real biker or a rich poser. You're part of a pack or you're a lone wolf. The reality is, for most people, they're actually in the middle. Okay, so I've looked at all the comments. I've grouped them into a few key common themes, which we're going to be talking about: Cosplay Myth, Chapter Roulette, the dangers of riding in a group, the Brotherhood, and I'll give you my sneaky last one at the end, which I'll reveal if you stick around. Okay, so let's jump into it. The cosplay myth. People seem to think that Hog is cosplay for bikers, pretend bikers. So you're not a 1% club, so you're just trying to pretend that you are. Part of when I went to the orientation for Hog, they did talk about you're not allowed to have, 1% patches or anything that looks like a 1% club. You can't have the bottom rockers and stuff like that. If you know a little bit about outlaw motorcycle clubs, that's basically just off limits because they don't want any problems with outlaw motorcycle clubs. And I personally don't think anyone there is trying to be a pretend biker. Do they wear leather? Yeah. Do some people wear patches and kind of those vests with their badges and, maybe a back patch in some way like a Hog patch? Yeah, they do. But that harkens back to in the early 80s when Hog was started, and it kind of was started based on the biker image. So there is some historical relevance to that. And of course, but they're not real bikers in terms of a 1% biker, I actually liked it when people had some of those vests on. I don't have one of the vests, but when I did see people with the vest that had who they were, what their name was, what position they held, I think it was good for the club so you know who you're talking to. So I actually thought it was all right. I didn't really see anything there that made me think it was a cosplay club. Common second theme was what I'm calling chapter roulette. Now, I think there may be some truth to this. Some people really had some bad experiences with, Hog chapters in their area. These are just groups of people, and not all groups, unfortunately, are equal. They're a committee, they're going to try to do the best they can. Some groups aren't going to be as good as others. Fortunately for me, I'm pretty happy with the group that I found. If I want to talk specifically about the committee side, well organized, they went through the rules and regs of how it works. They have regular meetings and runs, which is pretty good. They're pretty active. We have midweek catch-ups if you want to go. You know, so there's quite a few events that they're organising. They're pretty active. I was pretty lucky to find a club that's quite active and is really looking to provide a good way to meet other people who are into Harley-Davidsons. Now, unfortunately, that means there's probably going to be other hog chapters out there that are terrible in some cases. I can't speak to those personally, but there were a few comments saying it was the worst thing they've ever been to. Some said that they didn't have any events at all. They took their money, and that's unfortunate, and I'm sorry that you've had such a crappy experience, because I'd be pissed too if that was me. All I can really say is my experience has been good. Maybe try finding another chapter. I'm sure there's something on Facebook where they're talking about different clubs, different chapters in your area where you can get some feedback. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is safety riding in a group. So quite a few comments said, I'm not riding in a group, it's dangerous, people can't ride, some people are idiots, you know, they don't have the skills to ride in a group, it can be dangerous, all those kind of things. I think, again, there's probably some truth to that. Like, you know, you gotta think these are big, heavy bikes, right? Not everyone's out there trying to improve their skills. Now, in saying that though, when I did my orientation, we had to do a practice ride. So we had the road captain take us out for a ride. A few of us went, all the new people that were there for the orientation that hadn't been there before. You'd go for a ride and they'd have someone behind you as well. And we would practice doing the corner marking, and the person behind that was part of the hog group would actually look at us riding. And the reason they were doing that is to assess how good of riders we were and whether we were safe to actually ride in the group. If they thought that your skills weren't up to par, then they're probably not going to let you join the group and ride with them until you get your skills up. So in that respect, I felt pretty comfortable that everyone in the group has probably been kind of assessed at some level. So that gives me some level of confidence. Of course, that doesn't mean that it's completely safe. I do agree, you got a lot of bikes together. If something goes wrong, it could be disastrous very quickly. And I have heard of some group rides turning into a bit of a mess. And in some cases, multiple injuries and fatalities can happen. So you do have to think about those things when you're riding in a group. I felt on the ride I was on, it was quite safe. I didn't really feel any pressure to ride outside my comfort zone, and I didn't feel in danger at any time. Now, some people also, and I'm going to repeat kind of what I just said, that people don't know how to ride, they're terrible riders, whatever, you know, they're gonna kill me basically. So I'm gonna be a lone wolf, right? Or a solo rider. If you're riding on the road with other vehicles, I'm sorry to say, but all those people, probably a lot of them, they're looking at phones, they're not paying attention, some of them aren't very experienced. While you're not with other bikes in close proximity, you still got to look out for everyone. You still got to try to ride as defensively as you can. So I'm not sure there's that much difference, but I will say that, you know, there is some truth to riding in a group. You have to have your wits about you because you are riding reasonably close together. But I think that staggered formation and some rules around not overtaking anybody and not changing lanes. So if you're in the right part of the lane, you don't move to the left. And if people follow some simple rules and pay attention to what's happening up ahead of you, you generally shouldn't have any problems. So I'm going to call that myth partially busted. Can I say that? Is that a trademark? Anyway, let's move on. Okay, for this one, I'm going to call this the Brotherhood. And what I mean by that is the people inside the group, not so much the committee and organization of the club, but the actual people and how they interact with you as a person and whether they're friendly or cliquey, as a lot of people have said. Some people have been in Hog for 20 years and said they've absolutely loved it. It's been fantastic. Other people have said they've been to meetings and it absolutely sucks. The people suck. You know, there's cliquey groups, they're mean, they're blah, 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 whatever. There's definitely varied opinions. And again, if people are saying that, I'm not doubting that that has been their experience. But I don't think that's a Hog thing. It's something that applies to any social setting, whether you're joining a sports club or, you know, your local bowling club or anywhere where you're gonna continually meet the same people on a regular basis. You could even argue it's the same as your work. Is there cliquey groups? Yeah, I would say there probably is. Now, I haven't been in this club long enough to know who's in the clique, but for me personally, I don't really care. If there's a group that's cliquey, then I'm fine to just find a different part of the group to talk to. The people I did talk to were friendly on the 2 occasions that I've been. I had no problems. People were friendly. Now, is there cliquiness? Yeah, I think there probably is. But generally, I found the people quite pleasant. So that's my experience. If you've had a shitty one, I'm sorry, but it's probably just the group that you're in. Now, my surprise theme, or the last theme I wanted to talk about, was a common thing I saw is, and I hear this a lot in comments, why did you buy a Harley? Harleys suck. Buy a Honda. Buy a brand A. Buy brand B. Seriously. If I wanted one of those brands, I would be riding it. I've had a Honda. I've had a Suzuki. I've had a Kawasaki. And now I have a Harley-Davidson. I have a Harley-Davidson because that's what I wanted to buy. And with my money, I buy what I like. But I'm happy for you to ride whatever it is you want to ride. I've found this bike to be fantastic. Every ride I go on, I love it. If you've got a bike that you love, whatever brand, fantastic. That's great. You don't have to ride a Harley-Davidson unless you want to be part of Hog. Yeah, then you kind of do. So yeah, there's my thoughts on that. Okay, so I've covered like the top 5 key themes and my thoughts on those. But generally, in my experience, I've actually enjoyed it. I found the chapter to be welcoming. In my opinion, I would recommend it. Of course, if you've got your own group, maybe you don't need to join Hobby. You don't care, that's fine, but not everyone does. So if you don't know anyone and you're trying to find other like-minded people like me, I'm looking for riding friends, and the chapter provides that. If you made it this far, thanks very much for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Let me know what you think in the comments. Feel free to express your opinion. I really don't mind. I love to hear what you think. Ride safe, everyone. See you on the next episode.